In the mid-1980s, Jonelle Matthews' photo appeared on breakfast tables across America, one of the earliest children featured in the milk carton campaign. Her case captured national attention, then went quiet for decades. 30-plus years later, the answers finally came, and they pointed straight to someone who'd been circling the case since the very beginning. Welcome back to an all-new episode of Darkly Speaking. My name is Alex Kern, and tonight, we're talking about the disappearance and murder of 12-year-old Jonelle Matthews. On December 20th, 1984, Janelle walked into her Colorado home after a Christmas concert and vanished in the small stretch of time before anyone else returned. No forced entry, no struggle, nothing disturbed except footprints in the snow in the back of the Matthews home. Her case would remain frozen for nearly 4 decades, 38 years of questions, dead ends, and no accountability. That is until October of 2022, when the Matthews family finally received the justice they'd long been waiting for. It's 5 days before Christmas on December 20th, 1984, in Greely, Colorado. Inside the Matthews home, things are moving in every direction at once. There's more hustle and bustle throughout the house because, well, tonight is busier than usual. That's because on this night, everyone in the Matthews family has somewhere to be. Gloria is in the middle of packing for her trip to California, excited about surprising her parents for Christmas and seeing them for the first time in years. 16-year-old Jennifer is getting her things together for her basketball game, weaving around bags and jackets spread across the counter. And Janelle has her choir concert at United Bank that night, something she'd been looking forward to and almost nearly had to miss. Janelle is 12 years old, just a few short months away from turning 13. She's talkative, social, feisty in the way only a middle schooler can be, and genuinely kind. She loves to perform, loves being around people, and she's been excited about her choir concert for weeks. In the days leading up to this, Janelle had been sick with a cold, so she had to stay home from school for 2 days, and Gloria tried to keep her resting even longer. But on the 3rd day, Janelle pushed back and begged to go to school. You see, she had the whole day planned out. She had made little handmade gifts for her friends and didn't want to miss giving them out. And she certainly wasn't going to miss performing in the Christmas concert. Her determination won out, and Gloria let her go. Around 5:45 p.m., the Matthews family end up in the kitchen at the same time, a small pause in the middle of the very busy evening where they share a quick glass of apple cider. Janelle is talkative and a little fired up about Christmas. You see, she's frustrated that their celebration will need to be pushed to the 26th because Gloria won't be back from California until then. And then the night starts to split apart. Gloria kisses Janelle goodbye and leaves for the airport. Jennifer heads out to her game, and around 6 p.m., Jim takes Janelle to McDonald's for a quick dinner before driving her to the school, where the choir kids will be loading onto the bus for the concert. Jim, of course, wants to support both of his daughters that night, but he simply can't be in 2 places at once. With the concert and the game happening at the same time, he makes a choice based on what he knows. He's always been more of a sports guy, so he decides to go to Jennifer's game. When they reach the school, Janelle joins her classmates and steps onto the bus. Jim watches her go, waves, and heads back to his car. A simple goodbye at the start of an ordinary night. A moment so small it barely registered, and one that none of them knew would be the last time Jim would ever see his little girl again. Jim doesn't exactly know when Janelle will get home that night, but nothing about that worries him. Greely is a small, safe town, and he knows Janelle will be surrounded by familiar faces at the concert. The Ross family will be there, including one of Janelle's best friends, Deanna Ross, so he assumes she'll catch a ride home with them. It's nothing out of the ordinary, it's something that's happened dozens of times before. The concert itself is a big deal that year because, well, it's being televised. Janelle is front and center, smiling, excited, soaking up the moment. She is truly in her element. She loves performing, and the idea of being on TV is exactly the sort of thing she'd light up about for days. There's nothing in her demeanor that suggests anything is off. She's just a 12-year-old kid living out a moment she's so very proud of. After the concert, when the buses return to the school at around 8 p.m., Russell Ross sees Deanna and Janelle walking toward his car. Janelle asks if she can ride home with them, and of course, he doesn't think twice about it. He's always happy to help, and he's given her rides plenty of times. The drive is short and uneventful. Janelle and Deanna are upbeat and chatty, still riding the high of the concert, being on TV. They talk about Christmas break, gifts, and all the things 7th graders talk about when a big event just wrapped. There's no tension, no weird comments, no shift in tone. Everything feels completely ordinary. Russell pulls up to the Matthews home at around 8:25 p.m. His headlights hit the inside of the garage, and that's when he notices the door is about halfway open. It doesn't mean anything to him in the moment, just one of those details he remembers later. He and Deanna tell Janelle goodnight, wish her a Merry Christmas, and watch as she walks toward the front door. Inside, Janelle flicks on the lights off and on to signal she's made it in safely, something she's always done. Russell waits just long enough to see the lights blink, then drives off. Everything seems perfectly normal from the outside. Jennifer's basketball game ends at around 9 p.m. and Jim heads straight home. He remembers pulling into the garage at around 9:30 because a news special had just started on the radio. He parks, walks inside, and calls out, "Hello, Janelle." But silence. No footsteps, no voice calling back. He goes downstairs and instantly sees signs that she was just there. The TV is still on, her pantyhose are draped across the couch, things left exactly the way a kid leaves them after rushing inside on a cold night. He just assumes she didn't hear him the first time around and heads back upstairs. But upstairs is quiet. Too quiet. She's not in her room, she's not in the kitchen, or anywhere in the house. That's the moment something shifts for Jim. A sudden awareness he can't explain, only feel. Something is wrong. Jennifer gets home closer to 10 p.m. She picks up on Jim's panic pretty immediately. He asks her if she's seen Janelle, but she hasn't. And Janelle should have been home hours ago. A little after 10 p.m., Janelle still isn't home. Jim knows something is very wrong. He starts calling around, checking with her friends, just hoping that she's with someone and simply forgot to call. When he reaches Russell Ross, the pieces start falling into place in a way that chills him. Russell tells him that he dropped Janelle off at around 8:25 p.m. He saw her walk inside. She flicked the lights like she always does, so he'd know that she was in the house safely. Everything looked completely normal, and then, almost as an afterthought, Russell mentions the garage door had been open when they pulled up. Jim freezes and knows, no, that can't be right. He didn't leave the garage door open. He knows for a fact he closed it before leaving. Unsure of what to do next, Jim calls his best friend and pastor, James Christie, looking for guidance, reassurance, anything. Christie doesn't hesitate. He tells Jim he needs to call the police immediately. So, around 11 p.m., Jim makes the call. Officers arrive within minutes. Jim walks them through the timeline. Janelle dropped off at 8:25, the garage door unexpectedly open, and his return home at 9:30 to a quiet house with no sign of her. The officers begin checking the rooms, the basement, the doors, the windows. Inside the house, nothing looks disturbed. No signs of a break-in, no struggle. Janelle's shoes are kicked off inside. Her pantyhose are draped across the couch. Oliver's shoes are accounted for, but her coat, the one she wore to the concert, is gone. But it doesn't make any sense. Janelle wouldn't just walk off in slippers, not in the cold, not at night. The officer steps outside to check the yard and stops when he notices prints in the snow near the back of the house. They've been raked over, intentionally disturbed, as if someone tried to erase them. Jim tells them the prints aren't his. He's never seen them before. The faint tracks lead from the direction of the garage toward the garden-level windows, almost like someone had been standing there watching the house and staring into the windows from the outside. In the garage, officers find a rake with a metal handle, the kind of tool that could have been used to scrape away those footprints. Piece by piece, the clues start pointing to the same conclusion. Janelle didn't run away. She didn't wander off. She was taken. The open garage door, the erased footprints, the missing coat, it all fits, and whoever took her didn't stumble across the opportunity by chance. No, they knew the family's schedule. They knew Gloria was out of town. They knew Jim and Jennifer were at the basketball game, or at the very least, wouldn't be home, and they knew Janelle would be home alone for a short window. This wasn't random. Meanwhile, miles away in California, Gloria lands and calls to let Jim know that she arrived safely. Instead, she gets a truth no parent is ever prepared for. Janelle is missing. And in that moment, she knows instantly, instinctively, that her daughter has been taken. The night shifts, and that's when their nightmare truly begins. By early the next morning, December 21st, police are back at the Matthews home. The neighborhood is already shifting from shock into action. Officers escort Jennifer to school for her own safety, staying close by and supporting her throughout the morning. Patrol cars move up and down slowly on the street, and officers begin knocking on doors, trying to catch neighbors before they leave for work or school. Parts of the street around the Matthews home are cordoned off as investigators widen their search. The search itself expands well beyond the block. Officers move into the open fields, the irrigation ditches, and any stretch of land nearby where someone could have taken a child or left her behind. They cover ground quickly but carefully, calling out Janelle's name, checking paths, footprints, anything disturbed in the snow. During the canvass, one neighbor mentions something that sticks with investigators. Around 8:42 p.m., his dog suddenly started barking incessantly at the fence. It wasn't typical behavior, and it lodged itself in his memory. The timing is pretty notable. You see, Russell Ross dropped Janelle off at around 8:25. The neighbor's dog barked at 8:42, and Jim arrived home at 9:30. Put together, the window becomes clear. Whatever happened to Janelle likely took place between roughly 8:45 and 9:30 p.m. And the question grows heavier. How could Janelle have been taken at all? She was strong-willed, independent, feisty, not the kind of child who would leave quietly or go willingly with a stranger. Police settle on two possibilities. Either Janelle knew the person and stepped outside, or she was tricked and subdued quickly. Either way, it required someone who understood the family's schedule and knew Janelle would be home alone for a narrow window of time. By that evening, Gloria is back in Colorado. She flew home as soon as she possibly could, devastated and trying to process how fast everything had changed. The family is left replaying every detail, wondering what they missed. The community steps in almost instantly. By Christmas Eve, a reward fund is established and quickly grows to $5,000. Neighbors, friends, and total strangers rally around the Matthews family, determined to bring Janelle home. Tips begin pouring in, and with the scale of the case expanding, the FBI joins the investigation. Christmas comes and goes without Janelle. The Matthews family leaves her wrapped gifts under the tree, holding on to hope in the only way they know how. Then, in January of 1985, something strange happens. Police receive a phone call from a man who identifies himself as Pastor Stephen Pankey. He claims someone confessed to him about Janelle, but says he can't reveal the name due to pastoral privilege. A few days later, he shows up in person and tells the investigators to just ignore the tip completely. At the time, police just assume it was a prank, one of many odd calls they'd get as the case grows. And they move on. With no evidence, no leads, and no clear direction, police begin looking inward, and the first person they turn to is none other than Jim Matthews. He was the last person to see Janelle. He'd be the only family member who could have been home with her, and to investigators, his calmness doesn't match what they expect from a panicked father. They start watching him more closely, waiting for something that looks out of place. As detectives dig into the Matthews family, they also begin looking at Janelle's mother. And no, I'm not talking about Gloria. This is someone else entirely. You see, Jim and Gloria struggled to get pregnant again after having Jennifer, so they adopted Janelle through an agency in LA. Janelle always knew she was adopted, but she'd never met her biological mother, and investigators learned that her birth mother had only been 13 years old when she gave birth. That revelation sends police down another path. Could Janelle's biological mother have come looking for her? Could this have been a parental abduction? Suddenly, investigators have two people on their radar: Jim and Janelle's biological mother. By January 20th, 1985, a month after Janelle vanished, police still have nothing. No clues, no direction. So they ask Jim to come in for a polygraph. He, of course, doesn't hesitate. He knows families are always looked at first, and he wants to clear himself so investigators can focus on finding Janelle. The interview gets emotional. Jim tells them he's answered everything honestly. He understands why they had to look at him, but now he's frustrated. He wants them to move past him and focus on whoever actually took his daughter. Then the results come back. He fails the polygraph, and detectives view it as a confirmation of their suspicions. Jim then becomes their primary suspect. Meanwhile, on February 7th, 1985, just days before what should have been Janelle's 13th birthday, a family friend named Eileen Huff refuses to sit back and just hope for answers. She launches the Rescue Janelle effort, printing tens of thousands of posters, mailing them overseas, contacting radio and TV stations, organizing a massive search of more than 600 people around Greely, and helping grow the reward fund. She wants Janelle's face everywhere. And in the middle of all of this, something dawns on Eileen. The White House has a phone number, a real phone number, someone actually picks up. So she decides to try. No hesitation, no second guessing. She takes Janelle's case straight to Washington, straight to the president. Then, on March 7th, 1985, 77 days after Janelle went missing, President Ronald Reagan speaks publicly about missing children in America, and he mentions Janelle by name, the girl who turned 13 a month earlier, the child who vanished right before Christmas. His acknowledgement brings national attention that the case hasn't had before. Shortly afterward, dairy companies begin printing photos of missing children on milk cartons. Jonelle Matthews becomes one of the very first children ever featured. Her face reaches breakfast tables, lunchrooms, grocery stores, places where millions of Americans might see her and remember her name. By April 29th, 1985, 130 days since Janelle disappeared, President Reagan's speech has pushed the case into the national spotlight. Calls flood into the Greely Police Department from every corner of the country. People claim to have seen Janelle in malls, schools, gas stations, airports, everywhere. But every single tip falls apart. Nothing is real. Janelle is still missing. Jim Matthews is still a person of interest, and Janelle's biological mother is eventually ruled out. The investigation is stuck. That is until the middle of 1985, when, out of nowhere, Greely police get a call from within their own county. Weld County Sheriff Harold Andrews says he has something they need to see, something that could be connected to Janelle. That something was a piece of human scalp with medium-length dark brown hair. He knows Janelle had dark brown hair, so he thinks this might be hers. By the way, the story behind the scalp is quite disturbing, so please take care while listening. A farm dog found it somewhere outside and brought it home. The homeowners realized what it was and called the sheriff's office. The scalp is small, maybe an inch or two across. Greely police learned the discovery was made 2 months earlier, and this is the first time they're hearing about it. Weld County police held on to it for 2 full months before contacting them because, well, they wanted to first verify it was human before alarming anyone. But that delay costs the investigation valuable time they desperately needed. Once Greely police finally receive it, they send it to the FBI for analysis, but keep in mind, this is still 1985, pre-DNA testing era. The best they can do is hair and tissue analysis, and the results take months. The FBI report finally comes back inconclusive. They can't say whether the scalp belonged to Janelle or not. Then investigators take a heartbreaking step. They ask Gloria to examine it for herself. It's the very last resort, but she has to look at it, touch the hair, and confront the possibility that this could be the only trace left of her daughter. Gloria ultimately says the hair does not feel like Janelle's. She gives her answer in November, just weeks away from the 1-year anniversary of Janelle's disappearance. The Matthews family prepares to face yet another Christmas with Janelle missing. Eventually, Gloria gives away Janelle's unopened Christmas presents. The weight of the year settles in once more, and they begin to face the very real possibility that Janelle might never come home, and they may never learn what happened to her. Another year passes, then another. The investigation doesn't move, and the Matthews family is left living in the same painful loop. No new leads, no progress, no Janelle. As the years stack up, the case grows colder, and then, 8 years later, a new lead emerges from hundreds of miles away. In 1992, 8 years after Janelle vanished, Greely police get a call from South Dakota. A man has been arrested there, and inside his home, officers find a disturbing collection of newspaper clippings, all about missing kids. Janelle's case is among them. It's enough to raise alarms, but when Greely looks deeper, it falls apart. He has no ties to Janelle, no ties to her family, and he wasn't anywhere near Colorado in December of 1984. Another lead collapses. And then, 10 years later, in 1994, the Matthews family make a decision no parent ever wants to face. After a decade with no answers, Janelle is legally declared deceased. It gives them a small measure of structure, a ceremony, a place to visit. But it's not real closure because she still isn't there. Then, in 1996, a letter arrives from someone no one expected, Janelle's birth mother. You see, her birth mother had no idea about Janelle's disappearance and had hoped to finally meet Janelle, something Gloria knew her daughter had quietly wished for as she got older. Instead, Gloria has to write back and explain what happened. It's yet another loss layered onto all the others, a moment Gloria never imagined she'd ever have to navigate. In the years that follow, a few moments seem promising but go nowhere. In 2014, remains are found in Greely, and people start to wonder if they might be Janelle's. But they aren't. Later, a young woman claims to be Janelle, and that lead is dismissed as quickly as it surfaces. Each time, the family braces for answers that never come. Then, in 2018, the case shifts. Greely police announce they're taking a fresh look, saying new information suggests that people in the community or nearby may have known more than they shared in the past. Investigators put renewed focus on the choir concert the night Janelle disappeared. Police release the concert footage, the last known images of Janelle alive. She's wearing a red top under a blue romper. Some claim she looks towards someone in the audience and makes a face. Others see nothing unusual. Still, it sparks conversation, because if she was reacting to someone, who was it? Remember, none of her family was there that night. Either way, by this point, investigators feel confident about a few things. Janelle was abducted. It wasn't done by a family member. Her adoptive parents and her biological mother have all been ruled out. Whoever took her either knew Janelle personally or had been watching her. And because the window of opportunity was so small, less than an hour, someone had to know Gloria was out of town, Jim and Jennifer were at the basketball game, and Janelle would be home alone. So, police publicly state that they are looking for someone local, or someone who lived in the area in 1984. In December 2018, there is a surge of hope. People feel like a breakthrough is coming. And then, nothing. No arrests, no major updates. And once again, the Matthews family is left waiting. Eventually, after years in Costa Rica, Gloria and Jim decide to return to the United States to be closer to Jennifer in the state of Washington. And just days before they list their home for sale, the phone rings. It's the call they spent more than 30 years waiting for. Janelle has been found. They know she won't be found alive, but they will finally bring their daughter home. In late 2018 into early 2019, detectives Cash and Prill return to the earliest case files and work through them page by page. They find a mess, leads that went nowhere, names never followed up on, opportunities lost. But 2 reports from January of 1985 stand out. A man claiming to be a pastor, Stephen Pankey, told police he knew Janelle was dead. Days later, he came back and told them to just forget about what he said. That connection leads investigators back to Russell Ross, the last person to see Janelle alive. In multiple interviews, Russell brings up Pankey again, this time with context. Steve worked for him years earlier. There had been a lot of friction between them. At one point, Steve even filed a complaint accusing Russell of assault, though the claim didn't go anywhere. Steve and Pankey lived in Greely, Colorado in 1984 and was now in Idaho running for governor in the 2018 race. Detective Cash reaches out to Pankey and the conversations are unsettling. Pankey won't say anything without a deal, a strange demand for someone who insists he knows nothing. Then Angela Hicks, Pankey's ex-wife, enters the story. When Detective Cash calls her, she stops him mid-sentence and says, "Do you have the statement I made about 20 years ago?" Cash goes silent. He's never heard of any statement. And suddenly the questions start stacking up. What happened to that file? What did she tell police back then? The information Angela is about to share will shift the entire investigation and finally open the door to the first real suspect they've had in over 30 years. Detective Robert Cash meets with Angela Hicks again and again, and she doesn't come in empty-handed. No, Angela brings notes, legal briefs, old statements, and personal documents. And the thing she knows stops Cash in his tracks. Angela shares details that were never released publicly. She talks about the raked footprints behind the Matthews home and conversations she had with Pankey where he referenced those same rake marks. She describes the early days around Janelle's disappearance, Pankey forcing her to abruptly pack and leave for California on December 22nd, 1984, Pankey talking about dumping their dogs only for her to never see them again, Pankey setting his own car on fire in their backyard when they returned, his temper, the threats, the comments he made about Janelle over the years, and the years of abuse she lived through while married to him. As Angela talks, Cash realizes that she knows things only the person at the Matthews home that night could have known. And the biggest red flag comes straight from her notes, a specific conversation with Pankey about the raked footprints, the same footprints only investigators were aware of. Cash knows what that means. Stephen Pankey was there on December 20th, 1984. Investigators start planning to confront him. Then, days later, everything shifts again. On July 24th, 2019, detectives get a call. Human remains have been found, and the clothing matches what Janelle wore the night she disappeared. The case that stalled for more than 30 years suddenly breaks open. Janelle was found off of a county road the locals call the Road to Nowhere, a wide, empty stretch of land about 18 miles south of Greely. A crew working for an oil pipeline is digging through the field when they uncover something they don't expect: human remains buried in a shallow grave. There's nothing around the site, no structures, no paths, just open land. Some of the clothing is still present, worn, deteriorated, but recognizable. What's left matches what Janelle wore the night of the Christmas choir concert. A forensic exam later confirmed that she died from a single penetrating gunshot wound to the forehead. It's been 34 years since Janelle vanished when Jim and Gloria Matthews receive a call from Detective Robert Cash. He tells them the words no family ever forgets. They found Janelle. Her remains were discovered about half an hour from where the family lived at the time. The news is devastating, but it ends decades of not knowing. For 6 years, Detective Cash worked quietly and consistently on Janelle's case. Now, he's the one who brings her home. And with Janelle recovered, the investigation shifts over to the questions that have lingered since 1984. Who took her, how she ended up in that field, and what exactly happened that night. Janelle's recovery confirms what investigators long suspected. She was murdered. And now the focus turns to the man whose name surfaced again and again in old reports, but was never fully investigated. Detectives prepare to travel 9 hours north, crossing state lines into Idaho. Their goal is clear: speak directly with the man they believe abducted and killed Jonelle Matthews, Stephen Pankey. The trip to Idaho is long, 9 hours each way, and detectives go in hoping that speaking with Stephen Pankey face-to-face might finally open a door. It doesn't. When they arrive, Pankey refuses to talk to them. He gives them nothing. The drive back to Colorado feels like a dead end, but it does confirm one thing: Pankey isn't going to cooperate on his own. A few weeks later, investigators secure a search warrant for his home. When officers arrive, Pankey isn't there, so the tactical team goes in. They seize 14 handguns, multiple cell phones, and every computer he owns. Digital forensics paint a disturbing picture. Pankey had searched Janelle's name thousands of times, and when her remains were found in 2019, he stayed online and active for 36 straight hours. As detectives dig into his past in both Colorado and Idaho, a pattern comes into focus. Pankey has a long history of manipulating the legal system, calling and emailing law enforcement repeatedly and inserting himself into cases that don't involve him. He incriminates himself while insisting he's innocent. At one point, he tells investigators he'd accept the death penalty in exchange for information about Janelle. During a recorded traffic stop, he tells an officer he's buried more bodies in Colorado than she could ever imagine. The behavior is erratic, attention-seeking, and impossible to ignore. As pressure mounts, Pankey doesn't retreat. He goes public. He launches himself into TV interviews, podcasts, radio segments, and newspaper stories, repeatedly declaring he's innocent and being framed. But the more he talks, the more contradictions investigators observe, and the more he damages his own credibility. By October 2020, after months of gathering evidence, reviewing digital records, interviewing witnesses, and documenting Pankey's own statements, investigators make their move. Stephen Pankey is arrested and charged with kidnapping and first-degree murder. He's then held without bond at the Ada County Jail in Boise, Idaho, awaiting extradition to Colorado. For Jim, Gloria, and Jennifer, the arrest is surreal. They'd never heard Pankey's name before investigators brought him into the conversation. They don't know why Janelle was targeted or why this man fixated on their family. After 36 years of searching and hoping, they're left with a complicated mix of relief, confusion, and the beginning of a new chapter, finally learning what happened and why. On October 14th, 2021, 1 year after Stephen Pankey's arrest, Jim and Gloria Matthews sit inside a Weld County courtroom. Pankey stands before the judge and enters a plea of not guilty to the kidnapping and murder of Jonelle Matthews. In court, he's the same version of himself investigators encountered for years: cagey, guarded, demanding immunity, insisting he deserves a deal before he'll say anything about Janelle. Even here, under oath, he leans into that same pattern of control and theatrics. Prosecutors face a steep challenge. They cannot forensically tie Pankey to the Matthews home or to Janelle. Too much time has passed. Any DNA is long degraded, and there's no physical evidence left to point directly to him. Nearly 40 years later, this case rests almost entirely on circumstantial evidence. But there's plenty of it. One disturbing piece of Pankey's past surfaces during the investigation. In 1977, a college student from his church reported that he drove her into the Weld County countryside and raped her for 4 hours. Charges were filed, but the prosecutor, who was a male by the way, dismissed the case as he said versus she said. Pankey was publicly named in the newspaper and excommunicated from the church. Investigators believe this was the start of a long unraveling. The allegation is alarming and relevant, but the judge rules it inadmissible. The jury never hears it. Digging deeper into that same congregation leads to an important connection. Russell Ross, the last person to see Janelle alive, belonged to the same church. According to Detective Cash, Pankey carried a long-standing resentment towards several men in that congregation, including Russell. The two had a history. Russell had once employed Pankey. There was a conflict. A complaint Pankey filed accusing Russell of assault went nowhere. There was tension and bitterness that lingered. Prosecutors argue that on December 20th, 1984, Pankey was following Russell and witnessed him drop Janelle off at home. That moment became his opportunity to lash out at every person he believed had wronged him. Evidence shows that Pankey fixated on Russell for years. He followed him, harassed him, and obsessed over him. Prosecutors believe that this resentment played into his decision to target Janelle, a motive rooted in anger and retaliation. When Angela Hicks takes the stand, the court limits what she's allowed to say. The judge rules that any mention of abuse or violence she endured while married to Pankey is too prejudicial for the jury. Her testimony is narrowed and controlled. Even with those restrictions, Angela provides important insight into Pankey's behavior and his comments surrounding Janelle's disappearance. After weeks of testimony, arguments, and evidence, the case goes to the jury. They deliberate, hours turn into days, and in the end, they can't reach a unanimous decision. So, on November 4th, 2021, the judge declares a mistrial. For the Matthews family, 37 years after losing Janelle, the mistrial is yet another hard blow. Another moment where answers hover just out of reach. Another ending without real closure. After the mistrial in 2021, prosecutors and detectives go back to the drawing board. They refuse to let this case fade. They go back through everything, every transcript, every objection, every opening Pankey created, and they find something important. By attacking Angela Hicks' credibility during the first trial, Pankey made her full experience with him relevant. That shift allows prosecutors to introduce evidence they couldn't use before, including the abuse Angela had endured throughout their marriage. Pankey also opened another door. In conversations with investigators, he linked everything about Janelle's case back to the college student who had accused him of rape in 1977, a connection he made all on his own. Because he brought it up, prosecutors can now call that woman to testify. Her story becomes another piece of the puzzle, a pattern stretching back decades. Then, something else resurfaces. Investigators have long known that in 1985, Pankey filed a complaint against Greely PD, claiming he knew 2 officers lived on Janelle's street. The only way he could have known that, though, in 1984, was if he'd been watching the neighborhood. But during every interview, Pankey insisted he'd never been near the Matthews home before. That contradiction couldn't be introduced the first time. But between trials, Angela finds another handwritten note from Pankey, one stating that 2 police officers lived within 1 block of Jonelle Matthews. That detail was never made public. It becomes admissible in the retrial and gives prosecutors what they'd never had before: evidence that Pankey was surveilling the neighborhood before Janelle was taken. When the second trial begins, the courtroom looks nothing like before. The woman from the 1977 case testifies. Then Angela takes the stand again. But this time, she's allowed to tell the full story: the threats, the control, the fear, what Pankey said about Janelle, what he did in the days after she disappeared. None of it is held back. The jury sees the full picture this time. On October 31st, 2022, the jury returns its verdict. Stephen Pankey is convicted of first-degree kidnapping and the murder of Jonelle Matthews. He is sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years, though everyone knows he will never walk free. After 38 years of waiting and not knowing, justice finally arrives. Jim, Gloria, and Jennifer feel a kind of relief they haven't known in decades. Jim says Janelle would have made them proud if she were alive today. Jennifer feels peace for the first time in her adult life. She will always remember her sweet, spunky little sister as the fun-loving child she was. And Gloria finds comfort knowing that the man who took her daughter will spend the rest of his life behind bars. They have their Janelle back and justice has prevailed. And at the center of it all is Angela Hicks. Her courage, her persistence, her willingness to speak and to keep speaking gave this case its ending. Her testimony and her notes helped rebuild everything that had been lost. And in May of 2024, Jim and Gloria finally met Angela for the first time, a moment filled with gratitude, healing, and closure. That's all for today's episode. If you want to dig even deeper into this case, check out our website at darklyspeakingpodcast.com, where you can find all of the source materials and show notes. And don't forget to follow along on socials at Darkly Speaking Podcast for your dose of dark and chilling content. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time with a brand new episode.